Welcome to the How to Love Living podcast. This podcast, we discuss the things that might be holding you back from living your fullest life. On this week's episode, we discuss trust. Trust is one of those things that you either have, and that was kind of built within your person, being your experiences, your environment that you grew up in, your natural kind of default settings from genetics and what have you. Or you may be one of those people that don't have trust, or you may have trust levels somewhere in the middle. Today, what I want to kind of discuss is I just want to kind of discuss trust, how it functions, why we need it, and how to get more of it. The first thing I'll say is a world that you can trust is a world that is good. That it gives you the capability. Now, mind you, it's not going to solve all your problems, but it gives you the capability of being engaged in the world in a way that, if you didn't have trust, would make it much more difficult. I kind of look at trust in two perspectives. One is self-trust. How much do you trust yourself? So how much do you trust your decision making? How much do you trust your ability to get through problems? How much do you trust yourself to navigate through difficult situations? And the other one is others. So the others can be other people, family members. This could be corporations. This could be systems. This could be anything that's outside of you. One of the common kind of sayings that you'll hear is, if you don't love yourself, it's going to be very difficult to love someone else. And I agree with that statement. And I would apply that statement to trust. If you don't trust yourself, it's going to be difficult to trust other people and things and systems. So the first part of what I want to talk about is just self-trust. And I guess one of the basics of trust is understanding if you do lack trust in yourself and others, one of the things you have to understand is, where is that lack of trust coming from? Typically, that lack of trust comes through experiences. This could be experiences when you're little. This could be experiences that you had with individuals, or if you had a negative experience with a corporation or what have you, any kind of entity, then you could end up in a place where that experience gives you some PTSD, or even worse, some complex PTSD. So, and I'm going to go in future episodes talk about PTSD and complex PTSD. I'm not going to cover that in this episode. If you're interested in those topics, definitely look up those terminologies and look forward to future episodes discussing that. So, with those experiences and with the things that you've experienced in your life, the first thing you have to kind of address is, are these experiences valid? If you had those experiences, they are valid. Period. It doesn't matter how minor they were. It doesn't matter who did them. Nothing. If you had them, they're valid. Your feelings, your experiences are valid. there's a lot of pressure in our society to minimize and to degrade our experiences. Some people could say, oh, you're being too dramatic or blah, blah, blah. But they're not the deciders of how things affect you. You are the deciding factor in that. And if it's affected you, then it affected you. That's the first thing I want to put out there. So, with these two types of trust, so we have the trust in yourself and the trust in others. One thing to kind of examine, and this is something that with every episode I'm going to mention this, and so I'm going to mention this in this episode as well, is I do recommend that if you are interested, seek out a good quality therapist that you connect with. And the reason I say that is because I don't believe therapy is necessarily to fix a problem. I believe therapy is an educational experience that everyone should go through. An educational experience about your mind, an educational experience about your experiences so that you can learn and grow. We're not in our society armed with the information to navigate some of the emotional experiences and circumstances we have. So this podcast is kind of a way for me to share my experiences and my understanding of things. But the reality is that no one's perfect at all. No one, absolutely no one in the world is perfect. So if you can take some peace from that and know that the gurus, that the celebrities, that your mentors are not perfect, it helps you come in acceptance of your imperfection. So going back to kind of the trust part of it, one thing that plays a component in trust is your inner child. Especially if you have experiences in the past that put you in a vulnerable spot where you had an experience. So an example for me is a little kid, I was taught directly not to trust people, that people were there to take advantage of me and they're going to use me for my money and use me for themselves. I was also taught not to trust family members. I was taught to, because I had some abandonment when I was a little kid. And so I just naturally learned not to trust people, that I couldn't keep people around long enough to really trust them. And so through all my experiences, 18 years of 16, 18 years of lack of trust and seeing the worst in humanity, it put me in a place where I couldn't trust anyone. And it also put me in a place where I couldn't trust myself. I've often felt when I was younger that I caused all the problems that happened to me. So there's a huge distrust in myself. And so my inner child, and just a little bit about inner child. So we all have one. The inner child, imagine a child about 7 or 8 years old, and kind of imagine who that child is inside of you. Are they scared? Are they happy? Are they playing? Are they hiding? Look at the 7 or 8-year-old version of yourself and think about who is that individual inside of you? Who is this curious, innocent individual? And what things are going on with them? And so for me, I seen that inner child as someone who was hiding, that the world was not a safe place, that I built a wall of shoes. So when I was little, I didn't get the nicest shoes, and I had one pair of shoes that had last me the whole school year, and they usually wore out like immediately because they're just the $15 or $20 cheap shoes, and I would be, pretty much like shoeless for part of the year, and I'd get made fun of and all that fun stuff. And so as an adult, I have lots of shoes. And so I often imagine like my inner child building a fort out of these shoes that I purchased as an adult and hiding in this fort and, kind of protecting myself from the world. And with that inner child, there's a lot of lack of trust of myself and my decision making. There's a lot of lack of trust of anyone. I didn't trust anyone. Every person in the world was danger. That didn't preclude me from having friendships, and that didn't preclude me from being successful. But what it did do is it set boundaries on all those experiences because I didn't trust anything, nor myself. So once you kind of get a picture of that inner child, one thing you can do is you can kind of explore who that inner child is and what vulnerabilities do they have and what things do they, you know, what's their experiences and where are they at. And one of the things that helped me, so in trusting myself, one of the things I worked through with my therapist was we examined this inner child and we talked about who is this? Who is this person? And ultimately, there's two versions of you usually. There's the inner child and there's the adult. The adult is who you are right now. And the inner child is that vulnerable piece of you that you're protecting. And what you have to look at and the perspective that you have to take with self-trust in building trust with this inner child is going through and seeing where you've seen successes in your past. Like I seen success in my career. I've seen success in navigating through difficult situations. I've seen success navigating through difficult people. And I also had some failures, but I seen a lot of success. Was I perfect? By far, no. Was I missing goals? Was I missing a lot of things? Yes. But I was doing good in a lot of areas. And so I could build trust with that inner child of saying, see, look what we've done. Look at the things that we've accomplished. And then what I would do is I'm kind of a personality where I always am trying to improve myself. And so I committed to that. I committed to, and I think that this is the way to look at self-improvement. Like if you're going to want to make changes, which we all do, like life is it's a whole lifelong learning. It's this journey that's lifelong. It's not going to be you reach 20 and you know everything. It's not going to be you reach 40 and you know everything. It's not going to be you reach 60 and you know everything. We're growing continually. And so having faith in yourself that you're going to falter, but you're going to see success and you'll navigate through things. And that even if the worst thing happens, you'll navigate through it. You'll survive. It gives you a peace. Even if it doesn't occur in the way that you want it to, you can achieve it. So have that peace and have that faith that you can accomplish it. The first motto I have with others, and can be anything, businesses, people, systems, we're all doing the best we can with what we have. And I really do believe that. I earnestly believe that people are doing the best they can with what they have. Their best may be very low compared to my best, and their best may be higher than me and my best. And a lot of people may be just where I'm at, which is what I find a lot of times, that, a lot of people are just kind of meandering along, and they have successes and they have failures, and that's how that functions. So that is kind of the first step for me in just gaining trust, is knowing that everyone's doing the best they can with what they have. I think the next part of it then is, working through trusting others and understanding their perspective. Here's some examples I can kind of tell you. So and I'll link this in the show notes. So in the book by Dale Carnegie, that's funny. I just got caught in a moment of pause. So look in the notes for the Dale Carnegie book. I believe it's How to Win Friends and Influence People. I do believe that's the name of the book. And I actually think that's a really good book for just learning. So with the Dale Carnegie book, the first chapter discusses other people, and it discusses what they're under. An example he puts in there is, this guy's on a train and this other guy's there, and he has all these kids just running up and down the train. They're screaming and yelling, and he's trying to just read his magazine. So he gets really angry and he goes over to this guy and says, "Hey, can't you get your kids under control?" And the guy looks at them and says, "Yeah, I'll make an effort. I think that they're upset because they just lost their mother this morning." And once he understood that, his mind completely flipped. And he understood. Then he was trying to be helpful. So with trust with others, it's got to be baby steps, especially if it is a deep-seated mistrust. And it can be very nuanced too. So what I'll say, and this is something I want to talk about in a future episode, and this is both for yourself and with others, is how do you see it? Like, how do you view the world? And I've seen some extremes, and, and for me, in my experience, I'm very blasé about the world. So what I mean by that is when I go out and I'm interacting with people, I really don't care. Like, I just want to get whatever I'm doing done. I want to have hopefully a good interaction. If someone says something to me, then I'll kind of just blow it off. I don't even care. Like, I just don't care. And that's just my personality. So if I have like a bad interaction with the cashier, or if I have a bad interaction with an individual, I just ignore it for the most part, unless they, tick me off, or if it's something that's offensive and I need to confront it. And I've had circumstances where strangers were doing strange things and I had to confront them, and I did that. But in the same instance, I do have, right now, I do have a lot of trust in people. When I was younger, I did not. When I was younger, I would look at a lot of people and be very suspicious. I was very suspicious of what they were telling me. Was it the right thing that they're telling me? I was suspicious of, were they trying to rip me off? I was suspicious of, are they going to take advantage of me? And that all came back from my childhood and the things I learned there. And so whenever I would have an experience where someone did take advantage of me, I'd be like, aha, that's exactly what I need to be doing this for. So it's funny because you definitely can do that. Like, you definitely can look for validation and look and see, oh yeah, that's why I feel this way. This validates this feeling of not trusting people. And, I know people who have so much mistrust that they go out and, people are commenting about their outfit, or people are saying snide things to them, or people are spitting at them. Or it could be that every single thing that this person interacts with is just, well, they were really expensive and they didn't have the right stuff and they were really rude, and just have kind of a negative perspective on the world. And I'm not going to invalidate their experiences, but I will say flip the script. I love that phrase, by the way, flip the script. And the reason I say flip the script is this is is there a way that you can do two things? One, trust someone. So, and what I mean by that is don't just blindly trust people. Be cognizant of people are people. So there, and that goes back to my previous phrase, people are doing the best they can. Now, some people's best is really terrible, and some people's best is really, really good. But go on that kind of nature that these people I'm interacting with are doing the best they can, and some of them have a terrible best. They're doing the best they can with what they have. But what I'll say is this, is if you can trust that everyone is doing the best they can with what they have, that they're not being outwardly nefarious just to be mean, that this is in their nature, or this is something that, is they're in a situation in their lives where the best they can do is to be terrible. It gives you a little more bandwidth to understand where an individual is coming from. But I do think that it also gives you a perspective of, well, there's a lot of people, including myself, who their best, doing the best they can with what they have, is really good. And so you'll have outlier situations where you'll have a negative experience and you don't know the underlying reasoning for it. So definitely protect yourself. Like, don't just, blindly la 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 go and just it's not trust, but definitely be cognizant of everyone, but don't go defensive. Go in with an open mind. And, I kind of like the phraseology. So let's say you have a negative experience with someone. You don't know if that's the best they can. They're doing the best they can with what they have. So this is a repeated thing, or you don't know if they're just having a bad day. You don't know their circumstances. So if you do have a negative experience with someone, then, just be open. Just be open, and be open if you have a negative response to them. Say, hey, I reacted. So there are times when I'm driving, this especially happens when I'm driving, where someone is slow or they cut me off or what have you, and there's exchange of words and maybe some fingers flying around on my part and their part. So it's kind of a mutual thing. Usually I absorb a lot of the anger people have when they're driving. So I kind of react back to them in the energy that they're reacting to me. It's just as is, it's a to-do item that because I have no control of driving, as far as I have control of myself, but I don't have control of the traffic. I don't have control of other people. So I want to get better at that. That's like one of my goals, is to not react when someone cuts me off or they cut the line or something like that. That's something that I want to get better at. But going back to kind of the discussion, we don't know. I don't know if that person cut me off, if they're having a bad day, or if that's their nature. So think of it this way. So if someone does something negative and they do it just once, and then the rest of the interactions are positive, then have trust that generally your interactions are going to be positive with this person. And sometimes you have to slowly open that trust door. So for me, a lot of the trust door with other people came in through repeated positive experiences and focus. So what I focused on was the positive experiences. And if someone said something snide to me, or if someone spit at me on the street or what have you, I just kind of blew it off or didn't even notice. Like I just was kind of oblivious because I'd be in my own little world. So maybe put more focus on that and put more focus on, you know, what are the positive experiences I'm having? And then trying to understand the negative experiences. That way you can build a system of trust with people and individuals and corporations over time that, of course we got to do our due diligence. So, one of the things I was taught when I was young, and I actually keep this lesson with me, is, it's kind of that fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. So what I kind of do is if someone does something very negative to me, I acknowledge it and I kind of let it go. But then I'm cognizant, especially if it's a repeated interaction, I'm cognizant of it. So I don't put myself in those situations where they can do that again, but I'm not cutting that person off necessarily. I'm just kind of being very cognizant of how I approach it. And I think that is a good, fair, equal, and balanced way of approaching people, where if they do give you a place of mistrust, like let's say that you're working with a cashier, so you're checking out and they're always giving you a hard time about something. So they don't know that they get angry, you don't put the code on it, on your bulk item or what have you. But then you go to another cashier and they're like, oh, let me look it up. Like they're very friendly. If you keep going through that line, you just have to set that expectation that that person's going to throw a fit when you don't have a code on your bulk item. And that's okay. And, what I'll do is accommodate them just out of, I just don't want to hear it. So I'll accommodate them. And I don't mind doing that because I know that there's things people are doing for me that accommodate me because I get irritated about something. So I'm not perfect and other people aren't perfect, but I do believe we're all doing the best we can with what we have. And so that's where I would like to, approach trust is with yourself. Build that trust with your inner child. Build that trust that we can navigate through this as a team. See who this inner child is, what things are fearful for them. And then build that trust that, hey, kid, we got it, And then with other people, slowly try to, flip the script on how you see other people. Like really try to earnestly understand people are doing the best they can with what they have. And most people will help you out. Most people, if you really ask, will help. There are good and there are, people that just aren't in, a space where they're able to, but most people will. If you can learn to trust, it's such a strong skill set because it opens up a world. If you can flip the script and see the world in a different way, it helps you in navigating through a lot of the stuff. So we're going to go through Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And I think that's an important one to go through. I want to go through that in a future episode. But trust, I believe, is one of those basics that you'll see a lot of success if you can learn to trust. And, I'm still working through trust. So there are still things within myself where there's a script that I have about myself. Well, Jeremy, you only do blah, blah, blah. Or Jeremy, you only, do these things. And this is who you are. And I am working to flip the script on those things. So there's just, we all have them. We all have these kind of narratives of stories of who we are and the things we will not get or the things that we will not experience. And I would say flip the script, Reinvent yourself. Trust that if you make cognizant effort, you can see success. And trust in other people that if you're making effort, an example would be your manager. Like, trust your manager. If you're making cognizant, real efforts in your work and you're working hard to get that promotion or get that raise, that stuff will come to you. You know, if your workplace isn't a trustworthy place, if it's not a good fit, then you got to explore that too. Now, the last kind of item I'll put in here is relationships. So, this one's for those people going through domestic abuse situations, kids that are going through very dire situations in home circumstances, and especially with COVID, it especially concerns me. Trust can still be there. You can't trust the perpetrators of what's going to you, but you can trust other people. It's going to be very hard because of the circumstances you're going through. I've gone through that. I've gone through that in interpersonal relationships with a spouse. I've gone through that with my own childhood through domestic abuse. And it gets better. I know it gets better. It's very, very hard. But the first step is trust that the world will come to you when you need it. So trust that when you make that effort, when you're ready to make that challenge to yourself to grow beyond that and move beyond it and make your world better, when you can either graduate from high school and leave, or once you get ready to leave that abusive relationship and you call it to an end and you make that decision, that you can do that. And trust that I have not had an experience in my life where I hit so low that I couldn't rebuild myself up. And I know every individual that makes effort, and sometimes the effort will be very slow and very monotonous, but I do believe those experiences build character and strength. But it's very, very hard. And especially with loved ones, you care about them, you love them, and you see yourself as the raw problem, but you are not. So trust in the universe and trust in the world and trust in yourself and your capabilities, and know that even in most difficult, darkest moments of your life, that you will navigate out of it. And you know how you will know you're navigating out of it? Because you've navigated through other problems in your life. You've seen success in your life. So know that you can do that. And know that others have done it. And that there are tons of people out there that have navigated through very difficult circumstances, and they've seen success in that. You're not alone. We all have had very unique circumstances. All our circumstances are very different, and some of them pretty horrifying. But you gotta trust. I think trust is integral to the human existence. We need that connection with other people. We need that trust in the universe that it will come when you need it and when you're ready for it. I believe that. I believe that with flipping the script and coming in with a perspective of there is good in the world and there are good people and there are good things, it makes it easier to navigate. And it's heart-wrenching. Some experiences are very heart-wrenching, and it can be very hard to see the light at the end of the tunnel. And it's a journey. Like, this life isn't... I feel bad for people who think that this is all like quick fix stuff. This is a lifelong journey. There's no quick fix. but there is growth, there is understanding, there's education, and there is efforts and forgiveness and love and all the things that help you in the long run see success and be successful in your own terms. I'm going to end it here. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. If this podcast helps just one person, I've done my job. If you want to reach out, you can reach out to me at contact@howtoloveliving.com. That's my email address. Or you can go to the website, howtoloveliving.com. Right now, my projects, I'm working on getting this podcast loaded onto YouTube. So I'm trying to create video that will kind of cover the podcast itself. I may go to actually recording a podcast with me in video, kind of like what Lex Friedman does. I guess I kind of like how he does his podcast where he does the audio and then he records himself talking too. So I might go that direction. But please reach out if you're interested in participating in the podcast. If you have something to share, I'm open to that. So reach out. Otherwise, I will talk to you next week. Thank you for listening. Bye.